the Radio Cayman app now on your Android or iOS phone.
The Radio Cayman app
is where you can listen to Radio Cayman everywhere you go.
Everywhere we go, we go. Everywhere we go, we go.
Find it in the Google Store, the Apple Store, or use the link at www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Yes, now you can listen to Radio Cayman everywhere.
Radio Cayman's Historical Vignettes was brought to you by Rotary Central. For more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects.
Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here on another magnificent Monday's edition of our monthly Mental Health Matters. Hey, we have an excellent panel in store for you as usual. Dr. Borden facilitates ably and inspiring us to consider the importance of our mental health. So if you log on to YouTube, you'll see four gentlemen. Focus on the ladies. That's where the intellect and enthusiasm reside. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. And Royal Fidelity Bank and Trust, money at work.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow,
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And yes, our monthly Mental Health Matters, transpires on the first Monday of every month. For some reason, when there's a Monday holiday, the first Monday is relegated to the second Monday. So pretend this is the first Monday, even though it's the second, the third is fall after the fourth. It'll be all good. It's truly a wonderful time to be able to appreciate the importance of our health and well-being. And in the studio, Dr. Borden will sit with us jointly very shortly. But Mr. Derek Delaney, if I could ask, maybe you first, and then as we go around, just a quick intro for our listeners to appreciate, who we're speaking with, and as we get the topic settled. Well, Mr. Delaney, good afternoon to you.
Thank you very much. Yes, Terry Delaney here. I am in private practice as a counselor/therapist, and that's one of the points I'd like to deal with today in our discussion in regards to what is the difference between counseling and therapy, because the words are used interchangeably at times.
All right. And that's the thing, it's not just semantics and sometimes the connotations the word has, but the importance of it. And we're all lucky that we have both Dr. Borden and Zoe in a bit to help us to navigate not just the thesaurus and Webster's Dictionary, but to really appreciate it. But Jason, maybe from you, a brief intro. And thanks so much again for coming on and being a regular part of our discussion.
All right, thank you. Yes, my name is Jason Jones, and I'm a licensed counselor with OnCourse Cayman. Been here about 4 years now, and definitely getting comfortable with the lay of the land of counseling and therapy in Cayman Islands, and very excited to talk about this topic today.
Indeed. And perhaps Shane, with you, and then, good afternoon, Shane.
Good afternoon, Mr. Sterling, and thanks again for having me. Thanks, Dr. Borden, for inviting me. So my name is Shane Purcell. I'm a board member, fundraising chair, and support group facilitator for the Alex Panton Foundation. So, I'd like to be able to tell your listeners more about the foundation and our current initiatives and initiatives we have coming up as well. So that'd be great.
Indeed. Before we ask Ms. Zoe, perhaps, Dr. Borden, welcome. And I know, I do apologize. We sent the Valley out for you, and what they did was paint over the line. So sorry.
Gotcha.
But thank you.
Apologies at car trouble. So sorry about that.
Not a problem, man. We appreciate you very much. Not just, as we were saying earlier, not just what you do every month, now in assembling an extent panel, but remind us the importance of looking after, our health and well-being. And this, I think, has done a remarkable success in getting people to appreciate that we need to be able to talk to someone in a professional, competent way, not just the confidentiality, but the importance of having that, that help that's needed. So I was asking the gents, for a brief intro. You probably need none, but if you would, Dr. Borden.
Sure. Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Sterling and Radio Cayman. Really appreciate the opportunity to have these discussions every month. So I am Dr. Alexandra Borden. I'm a psychologist at OnCourse Cayman. I'm also a lecturer, an adjunct lecturer at UCCI. I'm proud to be a part of a lot of community initiatives as well. Really excited for this month's show. Mental health and therapy in Cayman. We talk a lot in general about mental health, a lot about therapy. Today we really want to highlight, and we always talk about how it works in Cayman as well, but today in particular we want to look at what's been going on, what's different here versus the other places, and what are all the ways that, that we have all these initiatives going on in the community. This week in particular has been a very big one. There was exciting news over the weekend, so really excited to be here. Thank you.
And thank you too for not just, the lecturing at UCCI, but extending the whole initiative to your students generally, and for bringing along one of yours, Ms. Zoe. She more than capable of introducing herself, but if you would just be brief.
I'll just jump in. So Zoe's, so I have a lot of my students join me as well. Zoe's actually interning with us at my work, so she's actually in school overseas, but everyone I talk to has actually raves about her. Yeah. So she's been phenomenal at our office and a big help, and I'm really glad to have her here today. But Zoe can tell us a bit more about herself.
Of course, I'm so glad to be here today. Thank you so much, Dr. Borden, and everyone for having me. Again, I'm Zoe Connolly Basteo. I'm a third-year psychology student currently studying in London, but I have the pleasure of interning with Dr. Borden over the summer, and I'm, again, so happy to be here.
This is where I think we can see the future of Cayman, but the future of the profession in and of itself. And the importance of, getting not just the skill sets, but getting the community and the society as a whole, understanding the importance of speaking to someone, getting the requisite help, but recognizing sometimes that, you need help. We all need some help. And to have that readily available here puts us in the power of a society that, we talk about measuring the quality of life and the happiness index, and some people don't appreciate the importance of where that plays in. So as we get into it, therapy and mental health and therapy came on. Set the stage for us, because I think Terry at the outset reminds us, we use a lot of words. We've talked about it before. Counselor, therapist, psychologist, all these different names and labels, but are they one and the same? What does that mean for the person who is looking to seek some professional help? Well, with whom am I speaking?
Yeah. We actually did a whole show on the different professions.
Yeah.
I'd recommend you look it up on drborden.com. But quickly, I can say, as far as mental health goes, one of the big distinctions that we make there is that a lot of times mental health is associated with mental illness. Right? I think physical health has made that jump, where when you think about physical health, you think about eating salads and running. Right? With mental health, when you hear mental health, you still think of the illnesses. So mental health is not just the absence of illness, but it's really having each person live a productive and fulfilling life, and looking at all aspects, right? Physical, mental, spiritual, as well as emotional. I want to add in social as well.
Yeah,
in all the different ways. So mental health is really about the mental wellness of everyone in the community. Mental illness is important to understand as well, and we will touch on that today. But I think that distinction is important. And as far as therapy goes, therapy is the process. Psychotherapy, technically, is the process, right? So there's counseling and psychotherapy, both of which are for support for different emotional concerns at different levels. And within the profession, there's a lot of options that you can even see sitting around the table today. There's a lot of different ways to help people in the mental health area.
If I might, and I don't necessarily want to belabor it, I think at the end of the day, people look in a competent, confidential space in which to get, timely assistance, that help that they need. But we would probably recognize that a psychiatrist, for instance, is an MD, and we would probably, in the medical profession, whether it's a cardiologist or neurologist, we would easily identify and differentiate between the different sort of sections, for want of a better word. Yeah. In counseling and psychology, the therapist versus the counselor versus is there for the person looking to engage someone. Is there a significance? Is it one and the same?
There's differences. We all kind of do a similar process, but there are differences in how we do it. And so I'll give an overview and I'll let you guys jump in as well. Obviously, they're going to know their sides better than I do. In general psychologist, we tend to deal more with like the more severe psychopathology. So like I'm trained, I do a lot of work in hospitals. I did a lot of work in hospitals. And so I'm trained to deal with really anything that comes up. I do a lot of work with psychiatrists. So that's the schizophrenia, the schizoaffective, bipolar disorder. And of course, I specialize with trauma and addictions. But so psychologists tend to deal with the more severe levels of psychopathology. We tend to do more of the assessment. So I do a lot of psychological assessments, psychoeducational assessments, looking for diagnoses, looking for difficulties in school, looking for difficulties at work, and then providing recommendations from there. So those tend to be what set us apart. In the States, we're doctoral level, but there are some on island that are licensed master's level as well. And we tend to use more the illness model. So you guys have, you've heard me say that counseling, I think, really takes more of a wellness and more of a positive approach. Psychology, because of the illnesses we deal with, we are a lot closer to the medical model. Counselors tend to be more of the wellness approach. They tend to be licensed master's level and tend to deal with not as severe problems. They tend to do a lot more of like transitional issues, adjustment issues. Some do have experience with mental health, and they do a lot of similar work to what we do as well in those areas. Marriage family therapists tend to focus on couples and families. So whereas counselors might use the family as well, counselors, psychologists, we tend to have more of an identified patient and work a lot individually. Marriage and family therapists always work from a systems perspective. So we've had a few on the show and they've talked about that. And so they might do couples counseling if there's difficulties in a marriage, if your couple's looking at divorce, if there's difficulties, even if there's difficulties with children, sometimes family therapy can be helpful. Because a lot of times family dynamics will influence what's going on. Even if there's one person having a difficulty, a lot of times intervention with the whole system is actually really beneficial. So marriage family therapists tend to work more systemically. Social workers tend to work more on the case management side. So we've always called the social workers the miracle workers everywhere I go. So social workers tend to do a lot more of the logistical things. There are some social workers that are trained to clinical social workers, which do therapy. So it's going to look more like counseling at that stage. But those are the main differences between them. There are some people licensed as, so I'm also in CPAM, I can tell you all the different licenses we see. People are also licensed as psychotherapists from the UK, and they're going to do therapy as well, which is dealing with any of the mental illnesses that come up, or even just people who need support, going through difficult times in their lives, going through transitional stages, wanting to explore the different aspects of themselves and further develop their understanding of themselves or their self-esteem. So.
Okay. All right. Well, perhaps when we come back from the break, maybe you can continue. Okay, go ahead, Dr.
There's also life coaches, which are a little bit different as well, that focus more on specific things that are going on too. So, yeah. But they don't tend to deal with mental health. They deal more with like changing jobs and that kind of stuff.
Career objectives and moving forward, getting your life sort of on track based on what you feel is good for you.
Yeah, and depending on what's going on, you might have a psychiatrist and a psychologist. You might have a psychologist and a life coach. There's different ways, because we tend to focus on different things. There might be different ways that they come together in the team to support people.
And this is it, understanding what's available, seeking it out, and realizing that you're stronger and better as a result of doing it. It's not, the opposite.
And wherever you end up, if you end up first with a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a counselor or a social worker, if maybe that's not the right fit, they can talk about what might be right for you. If you get in with one and you're like, well, I really wanted meds, so you ended up with a counselor, or you ended up with one of the therapists, and they might be like, well, let me do a referral to you for a psychiatrist. You get to a psychiatrist, you're like, I really don't want meds, I just want to talk about things. they should be able to do a referral to a talk therapist as well.
There you go. This is the importance of recognizing what is there. All right. It is our monthly Mental Health Matters. When we come back, we'll continue the discussion. Please stay tuned for Talk Today.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
Freedom, Cayman Brack. Freedom, Little Cayman. Soft breezes, blue waters, no traffic. Unwind and rejuvenate your mind, body, and soul. Sister Island Staycations, a taste of freedom. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
Did you know that defective airbags can cause serious injury or even death if not repaired immediately? Right now, millions of vehicles around the world are under recall for faulty Takata airbags, and yours could be one of them. At Vamp Motors, our priority is to make sure the Toyota or Ford you drive is safe. So we are offering customers a free, fast, and easy airbag swap out if your vehicle was manufactured in 2016 or earlier. Find out if you need to have new airbags installed by emailing your Ford or Toyota vehicle's VIN or vehicle identification number to service@vampmotors.com or stop by Vamp's Service Center or call us at 949-2245. Don't risk it. Get the airbags in your Toyota or Ford checked for free at Vamp Motors on Walkers Road.
The 7 a.m. news Monday through Friday is proudly sponsored by CG Britke Insurance, Health, Pensions, Life, where people come first.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us for our monthly Mental Health Matters. 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. If you want to be a part of a discussion, of course, you can WhatsApp 925-3261. Dr. Alexandra Borden, makes it happen seamlessly and seamless so easily. She's brought along one of our interns, Zoe Conley-Basdeo. But join us, Terry Delaney, Jason Jones, and Mr. Muscles himself. Sorry, Shane.
I was waiting for that. I hadn't got any comments today. I was getting real lightly, wasn't I?
He's like, stuck on a half in, man. That's okay, man. No, but Terry, as we go around, maybe we were talking earlier, and as we're looking at the whole discussion, I think the important part is that we start to appreciate the ease with which and the wealth of resource that we have when we think about, mental health and therapy, especially in Cayman. If I could, maybe Zoe, we don't always get the benefit of our students. They're either away or they're in school here or it's summer and they're otherwise engaged. So, if I may, you've opted to initially engage into the fetus psychologist study. Tell us why and tell us what your plans. Share with us as we discuss.
Of course. So I guess the most common thing I think people will say, at least a lot of my friends studying psychology, is they're interested in why people work the way they do and how to either improve that, better that, or understand that, or explore avenues that we're not familiar with yet. And there's plenty of those in the field of psychology. And I'm currently, with the guidance of Dr. Borden, really exploring what I want to do in the future with that. And that comes through many forms, because psychology is a broad field, through getting experience with different workplaces, understanding the different professions, and understanding the licensing requiremements and different career paths, depending on where you want to practice. Obviously in Cayman, I feel like the infrastructure is really building up to make it a lot easier for fledgling psychologists to really explore and, grow in a safe environment with, watchful eyes, careful eyes, nurturing eyes. So I'm very excited for my future progress here in Cayman.
Yeah, commend you for it. I mean, you've always been diligent. I think this is where perhaps, Shane, when you look at, and just even through the work of the Alex Patton Foundation, getting more and more of us to appreciate the importance that, as we able to demonstrate, our young people have the enthusiasm, they have the intellect, they have the interest, and they're committed to wanting to make the country better. We know sort of the stakeholders, but the space savers in a sense. We need to be contributing and nurturing, as she shared. The work over APF is phenomenal.
Yeah, thanks for that. I mean, different spaces. For example, we target like 5 to 9 year olds with our Apple and Zippy Friends program. So that's an emotional literacy program. So that's key. I think that's big on I think any mental health industry or area is kind of prevention, rather than cure, right? So we want to try and get in there early. And then obviously we've got our youth ambassadors in the high schools. So that's for I think it's 13 to 16 or 12 to 16 year olds. So that's great peer-to-peer support for teenagers in school. We've got other programs as well we've actually recently launched. One is a financial assistance program. So if you've exhausted your health insurance or your health insurance doesn't cover it, to go and see a therapist or a counsellor here, the Alex Patton Foundation then will review the application, and because all the information on our website, and then cover that cost.
What is the website, just in case someone wants to reference it?
www.alexpattonfoundation.ky. So we're pretty optically, I can't even think of the word today, but we're everywhere. We've got on Instagram, we're on Facebook, and obviously we've got our own website. So
all right, it's amazing. Mr. Denny, what your thoughts?
Okay, too many.
Too many?
Right now.
We have a counselor we can talk to you about.
Yeah, I know. I got to see a counselor. The reality that I come from is the fact that when I started my field of education, it was in psychology, and what I learned was psychology is literally the study of human behavior. And then from that, it becomes where does behavior come from? Our thoughts and our feelings. So it starts varying into these other professions. And you look at the whole concept of psychiatrist and, all that you've mentioned, social worker, a broad brush there, a broad range. All these different fields, it can be so confusing to the general public when you hear all these different things. I see it as the word psychology is kind of a big umbrella under which there's multiple professions, and all our professions overlap. So counselors do some therapy, therapists do some counseling, social workers do some counseling, and it keeps confusing. But the general concept I have basically is when you talk counseling, it's more for what I would consider relatively short-term dilemmas. The person who just lost their job and they're depressed and they're full of anxiety and they need to deal with when and how do I get a new job is very different from therapy, psychotherapy, which has to do with deep-seated long-term dilemmas, problems. Someone who lost a parent when they were very young. That kind of trauma stays with a human being. And we need to keep an eye on how are we going to help this person, like prevention was mentioned, thank you. How do we prevent somebody from having major problems further on in life? I dealt with a gentleman at one point in his marriage. He had a major problem because he was terrified to become a father. He wanted to have a child, but he was scared of the idea of being a father because his father had died when he was 4 years old. So the sense he was left with was abandonment. His father had just suddenly disappeared from him. And his fear was in some way he'd abandon his child. So that became therapy. That's a long-term developing dilemma, and it's a long-term resolution. So counseling is more, I think, kind of not always brief, because there can be new issues come up. But to deal with something that's going on in my life right now, therapy is more something that's been there for quite a while. And it's going to take a while to clarify it. But it still all fits under that concept of psychology.
I guess, Dr. Bond, that's why with CPOM, you reference to us, the Council of Professionals Allied to Medicine, right? That licensing, that sort of like the contractors or the, other professions, you want to know the person who's doing it has the credentials.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, and everyone can. The list of CPAM registered providers is on the DHRS website, which I give you the address to shortly.
.gov.ky.
But yeah, I think it's dhrs.gov.ky, and so if you are seeing anyone, that's something you can always check as well. That which means that they are properly licensed and held accountable for it. So
thank you. No, Jesse, you can jump in, but I was just thinking as Tara was sharing that, we all, to some extent, and I want to be careful, offer advice. I don't want to use the C word there, and we assist friends and family. But there's a difference between doing that loosely and formally and having a trained person in a confidential space that gives you, the assistance you need. I can help you with something, but that's not the same as seeing someone who actually knows what they're doing and share with you. Your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I really want to add on to what Terry said. I actually learned something today. So I learned that I'm doing both counseling and therapy at different times. I'm kind of one of these guys that just kind of does it and is intuitively doing things and not necessarily putting the name to the word or whatever. But it is interesting because when I sit down with somebody at first, a lot of times I will go through and, be exploring and asking questions and finding out where there may be problems and concerns, and be it in their life or their thinking or their emotions or their behaviors. And a lot of times one of my questions will be, who do you have to talk to right now? And, that's so important. However, there is limitations, of course. If it's, it's good that people have friends and family. It's better than being completely alone. However, there is a difference between a professional that has, gone for training in terms of how to respond to an individual, because the mass majority of people, the big thing that I hear is that even though people love them and care about them, they don't necessarily know the right responses to help them feel better. In fact, they can feel worse after talking to somebody because they get things minimized or tell them how they should or shouldn't feel or think. So that's one thing that coming to a trained professional in talk therapy will do, is that unconditional acceptance, non-judgment. And in fact, something I learned is that giving advice is probably one of the least helpful forms of help there is. So I always explain that my journey, even though some people are looking for the answers, one of my best mentors, I would go into him with questions. I would come out knowing what I had to do, but he never gave me the answer. And I was just like, how did he do that? And he was able to help me explore and make decisions for myself and own the responsibility of doing those decisions. And that's quite often what we're doing when we're helping an individual in counseling, especially, is exploring and walking down different paths and helping them cope with different maybe thinking problems or emotional problems, and take consistent action, towards what's important to them. So in that regard, having a support network is valuable for friends and family and whatnot. But I think everybody can benefit from some counseling and therapy, self included, because we're always in this growth process, and sometimes we get stuck, and sometimes we just don't know any better. The emotional literacy programs are fantastic, because one thing I always tell the early teens and parents is, the emotional social stuff, they don't teach this stuff in schools. But now they're starting to, but not necessarily in the mainstream curriculum, but with other organizations coming in. So, most of us end up emotional infants in adulthood, and we don't know how to process our thoughts and emotions. So it's a growing process for everybody a lot of times.
All right, well, Dr. Watt, we don't have a call online, but if you wish to.
I was going to jump in on some changes to Cayman and just kind of take it a step further, but we can hear the caller first.
Okay, that's good.
And then we can talk about
All right, let's go to the phones, and certainly appreciate you. Good afternoon, welcome. Thanks for calling. Hello, good afternoon.
Hello.
Hey, how are you? Hello, good afternoon.
Hello.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, I wanted to speak with Dr. Carmelena Martinez.
Sorry, we don't have anyone. Are you calling the talk show?
I saw the picture from the physician from Cayman Island. and I'm calling her. That's why I'm calling.
Okay, just 1 second. Paul, just inquire, because sometimes, lines get crossed, and then I'm not sure. But you were sharing, Dr. Borden?
I did share a post from, I did share a picture from World Mental Health Day, I think a year or two ago. I don't know if that's where the confusion came in.
Probably.
It was myself and a lot of the HSA staff. Okay. Well, so what I was going to say is that I think that a lot of these questions are important, and I think that these are things that were not asked before. Like what the difference is between the professions. Is someone licensed?
Right.
And I think that that's, since coming back, so I did all my training in the U.S. Since coming home, I have to say there has been a lot of really positive changes, and maybe Mr. Terry's been here from the start. I'm hoping he can fill us in on some of the history parts of it. But, there has been a lot of changes in the field in Cayman. And I think that the public beginning to ask questions like what are the differences between the professions is important, right? Knowing it's okay that if something's not working with the person that you started out with, that's okay too. Talk to them. I encourage you to talk to the person that you're working with. Let them know what the concerns are. Maybe they can do something differently. If not, they can help you find that person who might be the right person for you. But even like having the licensing board and having the information available, these are all newer things. And so I think that Cayman has grown a lot in the last few years. And I think that the biggest question I often get is about confidentiality. Mr. Jason was talking about the importance of having an objective third person, right? An outside person. Okay, so I am related to a lot of the island. So, which is why I have, people working with me who are not. Because some people like to work with me because I'm Caymanian. I was in the States for about 9 years doing the majority of my schooling, obviously, was here up through UCCI. But some people don't want to work with me because I'm Caymanian, and that's okay too. And if some people are close, they'll give me a call and we'll have a chat. If I feel like I can help them, if I'm worried about overlap, if they're worried about overlap, I may not be the right person, right? But that's all of us are able to have that conversation of, can this work? How would this work? And that's okay. But I know the biggest thing that I get, was you've heard me talk about the difficulties with running groups on the island, is that there's still this stigma against it, which APF is really championing the fight against that, to educate people on the importance of therapy and how beneficial it can be, and how many people benefit from it on island, are benefiting from it on island, because pretty much all the practices have wait lists. But just how normal it is to have support.
That's the thing.
So,
well, a couple of things I'd like to mention. One is you mentioned my longevity. Let's call it that.
Wealth of knowledge. No, you are one of the hallmarks in the field. So we really appreciate everything.
When you talk about growth of the professions here in Cayman, it was 24 years ago when I got a first work permit, and it was under the immigration heading of psychology. And that included psychologists, counselors, therapists, social workers, the entire list. And my work permit number was 006.
That's
awesome. So there had not been a whole lot of people in private sector now. I'm not talking about health services. And so I had no clue that was the case until I got that permit number.
Surprise.
But now you take a look at it, I wouldn't even be able to come close with a guess of how many people in our fields there are in Cayman presently. It's got to be 40. From CPAM how many people are registered.
Yeah, well, I don't know the number offhand because we register so many professions.
Right.
But there's many registered, and there's many assistant professionals as well.
Right.
So there's a lot more people actually offering services than are just the ones that are registered as well.
Right. And you look at the valid counseling and therapy that pastors offer, that they may not be registered as a counselor or therapist, and you can go on with that. Yeah. But that's what I'm trying to say. It's almost like trying to herd kittens. The field is just different, and because it's about human behavior, human mentality, human emotion, and that's changing day to day.
Yeah.
Where worldwide, where we all are now compared to 18 months ago is a leap. It's a huge difference. We went through this traumatic worldwide situation, which has opened doors to newness in so many ways. How many people will continue working from home? We don't know yet. And how does that change family structure? How does that, all this stuff's interrelated. And we have to be aware of that and realize that to help someone have a more fulfilling and joyous life is the core of the whole thing, to make it all function and flow well. That's why my mentor, who obviously I have tremendous respect for, taught me a most basic rule is when someone comes to me the first time, the only thing I have a right to think is, here is a person who might want to change something, period. I don't want to reference gender. I don't want to reference nationality, religion. Those things aren't there right then, because I got to hear who this human being is before I get any kind of things in my head about who they might be. I don't like the term diagnosis, to be really honest. It's necessary. I respect it. But I don't want to know it right away. I want to get to know the person. I don't like problem. I don't think there's something you want to change. Doesn't mean it's a problem. All these negative kinds of things that we've got that I think weighs down the sense of mental health. Because if you're going to talk about mental health, why do you talk about problems? It's about the restoration, the growth, the development. That's why I've been able to sustain my profession for all these years, because I look at those that are doing better, and it gives me more energy, and I love doing it.
You know, that's great. Some great words there from Terry. But I just wanted to kind of make the point as well that sometimes therapy is for listening, right? Not necessarily a person is going to get necessarily advice, but they just want someone to listen to, right? Outside of maybe their close network or their family or friends. So that's important. And we touched on obviously group therapy, how important group therapy is, and it gives a sense of empowerment. You know, it gives a sense of I'm not alone, because oftentimes when we have these mental health problems, we think, oh, it's just me, this big cloud is all over me, and why is this happening to me, right? We often feel that is there anybody else out there, right? So you go to these support groups like that we have, so I think they're extremely beneficial for people, and especially we now have our Teen Talk, which is virtual and online, and then obviously I facilitate the in-person support group. So yeah, I think support groups are really good for building up kind of a camaraderie as well, and just a sense of empowerment, right? There's no judgments, there's no opinions. Yeah.
And you realize that in there you're not alone, so to speak, with this thing, that this thing isn't new just to you. There are other people may have the same or very similar issues.
That's a catchphrase we use a lot in the foundation, is you're not alone. So that's important.
I keep hearing voices. I'm not alone. They're encouraging voices, parents, siblings, just in case. Dr. Wood?
Well, I mean, that's okay. Even hallucinations we can deal with as well. And so, well, and I wanted to say that because obviously that's something I'm very comfortable with. You know, and so you just heard Mr. Terry talk about in his approach, right? As many professionals on island don't necessarily rely as much on diagnosis. But in my world, being more medical, that is something we do a lot of. Clients that are seeing counselors or therapists will be referred to me for an assessment, for clarification of diagnosis, for recommendations, for accommodations for sitting exams, or for taking time off of work for mental health reasons, or returning to work. So there's a lot of reasons why we might do that, but that's a difference in our training and our profession and our approaches. I don't think a diagnosis defines anyone, but I also, in my training feel it's an important part of understanding what's going on. And depending on what's happening, I may or may not share that diagnosis with someone. Some clients find it really helpful to know this is what's going on. These are the standard or the evidence-based treatments for it, and this is what we'll be doing with it. But I think that was a great example of how different people work. So there's a lot of options there.
All right. Well,
and there's 81.
81.
I just found out. So I went through the list. There's 81 people licensed as either a psychologist, master's or doctoral level, counselor, therapist, or a social worker. I'll say counselor, therapist will include like alternative therapies like music therapy and art therapy. So there's going to be a few people in there who aren't doing psychotherapy. And a few of the social workers are going to be more social worker than therapy focused. But that's awesome. And that doesn't include the assistant professionals that I had mentioned earlier, like the BCABAs and the ones that are assisting with the ABA treatments at the different facilities.
Right. And if you want to see that, then DHRS.
.gov.ky, yep, and then you'll click on the side there's a tab on the side that says Register Healthcare Practitioners and Facilities.
Right.
I'll say if you don't see someone there and they're new to the island, give them a call because the list is updated every couple of months, so there may be a bit of a lapse.
Right, okay. Well, let's pause and take the break. When we come back after the news, let's continue the discussion. And if anything, please understand there is no stigma and there is actual strength and courage, and you're even better because you seek out therapy, counseling, the counseling of a professional. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Busy, busy, busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences. At Subway, we know a meal isn't quite complete without a side, and that's why we're introducing waffle fries. Subway's waffle fries are oven-baked softness with extra crispy edge, giving a satisfying taste to be enjoyed as is or in any of Subway's dipping sauces. Order waffle fries as a side item for $2 or make it a meal deal. Subway, eat fresh.
Want your kids to gain social skills, independence, self-confidence indoors? King's Sports Center Art of Fun Summer Camp is the solution. Make memories, learn new skills and life skills. Activities include basketball, football, dodgeball, arts and crafts, squash, drama, kids aerobics, bowling, and much, much more. King's Sports Center Art of Fun Summer Camp will be held from July 6th through August 6th. July 6th through August 6th. Monday to Friday from 8:30 a.m. until 5 p.m. Camp includes all activities, 1 lunch, and 2 breaks. For more information, call 946-5464 or email kings@candw.ky. Your one-stop facility for fitness, recreation, relaxation.
When I was growing up in Cayman, Sundays was always a big day for our family. Everyone would go to Granny's house for Sunday dinner after church. Even today, I can still smell the aroma of all the delicious food we used to eat, especially the hot, fresh baked bread smothered in butter, topped off with our favorite pan cheese. These days, I don't have enough time to cook and bake, but I do my best to carry on the Sunday tradition of family meals, and being able to get hot, fresh bread with no preservatives or additives from Caribbean Bakery is a big help for me. Shh, don't tell them, they still think I baked it. Caribbean Bakery, now delivering every Sunday to McGrath's grocery store in Eastern Avenue and Marina Drive. Caribbean Bakery, made Cayman fresh.
Radio Cayman, the voice,
the heart,
the soul of the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice. Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom. Today's biggest news.
Government reported the results of 427 COVID-19 tests on Friday. There was one positive test result in a traveler. To date, 94,277 COVID-19 vaccinations have been given in total in the Cayman Islands. Turning to international news now. All remaining lockdown restrictions in England will be lifted in a week despite a sharp rise in coronavirus cases, Britain's health secretary said Monday, adding it is the right time to allow Britons a chance to return to normal life. Sajid Javid told Parliament that Britain's successful vaccine rollout means that 9 out of 10 adults in the UK now have antibodies against the virus. The government is on track to meet its target of offering all adults a first vaccine dose by July 19th, the day when all remaining lockdown restrictions, including mandatory mask wearing, are set to be lifted. Meanwhile, the online racial abuse of some England players following Sunday's Euro 2020 final defeat by Italy has been described by the team's manager Gareth Southgate as unforgivable and just not what we stand for. Marcus Rashford, Jadon Sancho and Bukayo Saka were targeted on social media after they missed penalties in the 3-2 shootout defeat at Wembley Stadium. For some of them to be abused is unforgivable, said Southgate, who was speaking at a virtual press conference on Monday. He added some of it has come from abroad. We have been told this, but some of it is from this country. Before and during the Euro 2020 tournament, the England players have knelt before each of their matches in a display of unity in the fight against racism and inequality. And the United Nations on Monday lamented what it called a dramatic worsening of world hunger last year, saying much of that is likely connected to the pandemic. A report issued jointly by 5 UN agencies said hunger outpaced population growth in 2020, with nearly 10% of all people estimated to be undernourished. It said the sharpest rise in hunger came in Africa, where 21% of the people are estimated to be undernourished. Those are your latest headlines here on Radio Cayman. I'm Shanda Gallego.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. It is our monthly Mental Health Matters, and I can't say sufficiently thanks enough publicly nor privately to Dr. Alexandra Borden for helping us to come along with this discussion. I believe as we look at our panel month to month, we start to appreciate the importance of how people are more receptive and more tuned, but more cognizant of the importance of seeking out proper, confidential, competent services. And bring along one of our interns, Zoe Conley-Bazio. Thank you for joining us from the Alex Banner Foundation. We have Shane Purcell and Dr. Borden's colleague over at On-Course Cayman, Jason Jones, together with Terry Delaney over in private practice. We see sort of the evolving discussion, but also acceptance and almost willingness to approach this level of help. Many of us, sadly, will ignore going to the physician even when there is something obviously wrong, but at some point we'll go. We're more inclined to go to see your dietitian, a personal trainer. Hopefully we'll get into that same space in our minds and with the communities and society's support to speak to our mental health providers. But Jason, as we bring you back into the discussion, small place as it is, new as it is in terms of our history, we're making great strides.
Absolutely. I'm getting very proud to be in the mental health field in Cayman Islands. I was told before I came that Cayman Islands was 50 years behind with mental health compared to North America, but I'm not seeing that anymore, even if it was. I was so proud on the weekend to attend a ribbon cutting and opening ceremony of the Loud Silent Voices community, first ever community mental health group home on the island. A big up to Jackie Neal and the Mental Health Commission for pushing forward and for her dream of the last 10 years. And it was really touching to see, and it was great to see the home that some of these individuals are going to get a chance to live in the community and hopefully take a lot of the pressure off of family members that have been trying to take care of them and keep them on island and in the Cayman community. As well, of course, with the upcoming opening of the residential mental health facility out east, that gives us another couple of layers beyond just keeping an individual safe in the hospital and then looking for services overseas.
If I may, Dr. Barncroft, through you and ask Zoe on her own, but when we look at the society and its acceptance and the unfortunate sort of stigmas that have been attached to it. We see people walking in our communities and we cast aspersions on them. But for me, there by the grace of God go I. This opening of this community, Senator Ms. Jackie is a champion. But like so many others, she responds and has the tenacity, that staying power. Now, Zoe, with that, as you look at your profession, as you look at your studies, as you look at where Cayman is and where potentially we can go, what are some thoughts of enthusiasm, caution even, that you may have?
Of course. So again, as we were briefly discussing, Cayman may be behind in terms of infrastructure or sheer numbers. But again, as someone who's studying in the UK, I can see what support systems they have and the network they have in place. But in Cayman, we have a very unique opportunity to learn from the mistakes that they made, observe other countries around us. And something that I very passionately and strongly believe in is adapting those for the needs of our people. Because we can't continue to rely on overseas resources and overseas systems and models. We need to adapt it for us, create resources and homes and care for our community. And I think Cayman is doing that fantastically. As a young person, I know a lot more people are receptive and opening. Like the existence of the APF Youth Ambassadors is proof of that. People are willing to talk about it and willing to challenge and willing to explore. Obviously, again, as a young person, you grow up known by more people than you could ever know. So it's another barrier you kind of have to overcome, thinking, right, I not only have to explore this world of mental health with my peers, but of the adults and my community around me. But I think that young people are doing an amazing job of being brave and seeking help and being innovative in how they, encourage their peers, hey, there's these resources, look for help, look for a professional, because we were also talking earlier that, seeking advice from a friend is not enough. And in the age of social media, it can be very dangerous because there's a lot of false information. People online aren't all psychologists and therapists. I mean, that'd be wonderful, but it's not. But Cayman has a lot of resources. There are so many places that we can seek help. And I really think Cayman is doing a fantastic job of building a wonderful foundation for young people and our children in times come.
If I may then ask, and we can all jump in, you reference, being a barrier, being known by, we grew up in Cayman and, you're so-and-so's daughter, coming through the airport, going into the supermarket. There is that level of familiarity. I would say, being famous, as it were. You see it as a barrier. Maybe us as adults and the parents see it as something else. If you could, why a barrier?
Of course. So I must also say it's a massive resource.
Yeah.
I'll clarify that.
No,
I can't say otherwise. But it is something that, if it could be a perception that if I seek help, person will know that my parents are sending me to seek help. If someone might judge my parents for that. Oh my goodness, I can't do this because people will know who I am no matter where I go. So it definitely could be something that could stress people out. But again, that's what your therapists, counselors, psychologists are for, to work through that with you. And at the end of the day, it is the responsibility of parents to some extent to make sure their child feels comfortable and supported in going to therapy, but also as a society to make it so that barrier doesn't exist anymore. Because through the continued work of all these amazing professionals, we break down that stigma and make it so that no one is afraid to go to therapy, because everyone needs it at some point.
There's no judgment, there's no condemnation.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you helping us to hear that and emphasize. We all probably, when I heard the question, know the answer, but maybe sometimes we as the adults don't see it. We see the great resource, but we don't see the flip side that may be very evident, especially in the mind of our children or young people who will say, well, if I'm doing this, we immediately talk about, the question of who you're for. That has that connotation that your behavior here reflects, as is the behavior of the parent reflecting on the child, but more often than not, it's the child and the parent. Respectful to Dr. Barton, even to what you said earlier. A client may come to you because of the connection, but they may say, no, she knows my daddy, or I know her mama, or whatever the case is. We went to school together, and they may not feel as comfortable.
Yeah, and either way is okay. This is definitely, and sometimes, it's up to the person and up to the professional as well. But I'd say it's worth reaching out. Sometimes people come and we'll talk and there might be overlap. And so, I'll say, well, maybe I'm not the right person for you, and then I can make a recommendation. Once I have a bit more information about what's going on, I can make a recommendation to someone else. And sometimes I've been working with someone before and I found out 3 months in that they're my cousin. I'd never met them.
They did?
I was okay with that. I don't see them ever at Christmas parties. In 35 years I haven't met you, I think I'm good. But we did have a conversation. Should something change and this comes up, then that's okay, because things do happen. There might be new overlaps as people's lives change, and it's a very fluid conversation in Cayman. In America, you're probably not going to run into your therapist everywhere. Right? It happens in Cayman, especially a lot of us are involved in other community initiatives. So, in the States, you don't run into them in the supermarket, at the restaurant, when you go for lunch. But in Cayman, you do. So all of us are prepared for it. We're not going to talk to you out of respect. It's your personal information that you know us, and that's your confidentiality, which is what makes us different from a friend. But But if you talk to us, we'll talk to you.
But it's interesting, right?
Ask your therapist.
Yeah, talk to your therapist. We would see our physician, for instance, not a coach as well, but a physician in a supermarket. And we've probably all at some point seen this. We've go to the physician and there's a good conversation, and there's an attempt usually by the patient to ask the physician something about a visit coming up or transpired recently, medication or doctor's spot. And we seem to be okay with that, openly in the thing. And I've just witnessed this recently, and the physician's like, okay, when you come to my office, not because they're looking to make a follow-up appointment and make more money, but to respect the confidentiality. Yet with our psychologists or counselors and therapists, we are somehow have a different perspective. Now, if you go into the doctor for that spot, whatever that is, you would think you would want your medical, information a little bit more, a little less public. But yet, for some reason, we don't want to talk to our therapist.
Well, it happens both ways. Yeah. Sometimes you get people that do want to come and talk about everything, right? So it just depends on the person and the situation, and that's understandable. And so that's between the person and their therapist how they want to handle that. Because I always tell people, I was like, I won't talk to you. If you want to talk to me, you're welcome to. I won't talk first. I offended many people when I got home. But you also don't know who they're with or what's going on. So just ask, just to always be mindful of that. Yeah. Who's around, because my family knows not to ask, but and everyone knows I'm a psychologist, but they also don't know where this person's coming from because I do so many other things. Right. So if most of my friends and family know, if they see me talking to someone they don't know, not to ask. But I just ask people just to bear that in mind.
All right. Well, when we come back from the break, if I could, and maybe Zoe, if it's okay to start with you, stigma. We always realize that's probably one of the barriers. I think back to the great success that we've had with talking about cancer openly, the excellent public education, and that word was whispered. I mean, sometimes not even in reference. Now we talk about it. People are going, they're seeing the things. Is stigma in mental health getting worse? Is it the same, or is it we're seen as being less and less, so that we're approaching it? And then if we could, if Zoe would be inclined, that barrier that we probably don't necessarily appreciate, we see it as a great resource. Or my child is known by everybody. Well, how does that flip on the other side? Maybe some of the things we can look at, because I think we start to need to appreciate more and more, how we can help, and sometimes how we're hindering when we don't even realize that we are. All right, stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette, brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Arnold Athelin Foster, 1893 to 1970. Mr. Cappy Foster married Agatha Van de Sand in Cayman Brac in 1915, and together they raised 8 children who, like their parents, contributed to the growth and success of the Cayman Islands. 2 sons chose a life of public service, Dennis as a chief secretary and Trevor as an MLA and member of Executive Council. Their other children have been successful business people who have created jobs for Caymanians and given much to their communities. Mr. Cappy was a devoted husband and father. He spent many hours farming and operating his bakery in Cayman Brac, and at one time managed a well-respected boatyard, Cayman Boats Limited, in Jamaica. He was an active member and deacon of Ebenezer Baptist Church at the Creek. His love for God, family, and country were an example for others to follow. One of Mr. Cappy's many contributions was as a founder of Cayman Brac Power and Light Company. In recognition of his service, he was requested by the government to represent Cayman Brac at a reception for Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II in Jamaica in 1953.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette, brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Wouldn't it have been grand if you had purchased land 30 years ago? It may not be 2020, but a perfect vision has never been more clear. Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. poised for growth with an eye on the future. Your land, your history, your future. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you very much for joining us, and with all who volunteer in our society, all who are public champions, and even privately encouraging others to be better and to do better. Thank you very much. And thanks too to Dr. Borden for helping us to have a monthly Mental Health Matters. It's crucial. So we have from the Alex Panton Foundation, Sheen, and of course Jason Jones, one of Dr. Borden's colleagues over on Course Cayman. I was asking earlier, though, if I might, and unless it's improper, I wanted to start with Ms. Zoe Conley-Basdio. Stigma. We see so much of it sometimes, and the good thing that we may see in Cayman could in fact be something that we don't see as a potential negative. You know, I was glad that she was sharing about that barrier of everybody knows you, good and bad. So thanks for sharing. Stigma, from your perspective, when it comes to mental health and the related issues, what would be your perspective, Mom?
Of course. So, as I was saying before, I think we're on a very solid path to breaking down the stigma surrounding mental health and mental illness in Cayman. But we previously touched on the distinction between health and illness, and I think a large part of the stigma is made up of the fact that people think illness and not health. And so people say, oh, you go into a therapist, oh my gosh, what's wrong with you, you know? Not, oh, you know, I want to improve some aspect of my life. We also talked about the distinction between counselors, life coaches, all these different professions that can help better your lives. And I think that by increasing the understanding of what exactly mental health is through the different resources like the APF, like the different clinics on island that work with the community groups, work with workplaces even, to kind of help people understand, you know, you don't have to be suffering to seek help. You can just want to be better and improve the lives of yourselves, which can have a knock-on effect onto the lives of those around you. And so in addressing that stigma within young people and within the wider community, I think we could all just be more aware of that distinction. And if you're uncertain, educate yourself. There are so many more resources available right now. If you have a question, it can probably be answered.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, because we'll ask Dr. Borden maybe the whole idea of mental illness, but just think back to last year. You know, many of us were probably grateful that we had someone who would listen. You know, we were disconnected. We were struggling because we're used to, well, we're social creatures, right? We're social beings. We like to interact and engage, even those of us who may be, in our own minds, very, very introverted and like our private spaces. But there comes a point in time where you need that physical, social interaction that a other human being can provide. Having that person to listen and talk is important. Can you imagine now if there is something weighing on you relative to your job or your family or what else? You want to be better, right, Ms. Lee? Okay. So mental illness and mental health. Distinction, difference, one the same?
I mean, everything is on a continuum, right? So we've done lots of different shows looking at anxiety versus depressive disorders. The mood disorders also include bipolar, schizophrenia, and the psychotic disorders, personality disorders. There's a lot of different kinds of mental illness and different disorders that people deal with. But a lot of none of them are completely removed generally from what we go through. So a lot of us can relate to the symptoms. It becomes a disorder once it is beginning to either cause significant distress, it's really overwhelming us. This will be different for different people. Right. Some people tend to have anxious tendencies but are not overwhelmed by it. Some people, you know, something might happen and they become easily overwhelmed where another person won't. So it varies from person to person. If they're experiencing significant distress or impairment in functioning. It's the point, you know, that you're overwhelmed to the point that you're not able to go to work or not able to go to school, not able to do the things that you normally do each day. At that case, it might be a disorder and it might be worthwhile talking to someone, but it doesn't have to be that level to reach out for help either.
I'm wondering, too, to what extent some of the things, whether diagnosed or otherwise, whether you're, hopefully getting treatment for it, could, in the absence of getting the treatment, could lead to other issues. You know, we see a lot of people with ADHD, for argument's sake, could that lead to other health issues down the road, including?
For sure. There's such an overlap and such an interrelationship between the physical and the mental health that a lot of the physical ailments like IBS tends to actually be anxiety. Right? So stress can cause physical issues.
So IBS tends to be anxiety?
A lot of times, yes. There's underlying anxiety.
Okay.
Not always.
No, not always.
Right?
Yeah.
But a lot of, even the chronic pain syndromes, a lot of times overlap with a lot of the mental health side of things. So there's this very close relationship between the body and the mind. In Cayman, because we don't tend to be as psychologically minded, a lot of the stress symptoms actually present physically through either pain in the head, like headaches, neck aches, stomach aches, back aches, kind of like indiscriminate generalized pain that doesn't respond to medical treatments and there's no medical basis for. So a lot of times that is actually coming from stress, anxiety, depression, that kind of thing. But likewise, physical things cause stress. Right? So if you have a pain syndrome, we've got, I've worked with a lot of people with pain difficulties, that causes stress. Stress activates the body's sympathetic nervous system and then complicates the pain. So there's a lot of overlap between the physical and the mental health side of things. But the mental health as well, especially the more severe disorders, will interfere with things like daily hygiene, the immune system, and the ability to fight off difficulties as well. So there's definitely a lot of ways that our mental health can affect our physical health as well.
And understanding the interconnectedness.
And they overlap a lot with substance abuse as well. Right? And so I think that's one of the biggest changes that I've seen. So is that, like when I first came home or when I first started getting interested in the field, the counseling center was initially the substance abuse counseling center. Mr. Terry was sharing over the break that was when he was brought on island, that's what he was brought here for. And so that was the main focus, because I said when I went off to school, it's okay to be an alcoholic but not to be depressed in Cayman. And that's a stigma that I've seen continue, but I think is getting much, much better as people are beginning to understand what anxiety is, beginning to understand what depression is, and they're willing to seek help for all of it. So even between alcohol and drug use, there's even still big barriers there.
Or even using the word alcohol and drugs as opposed to alcohol is a drug.
Exactly,
Yeah,
and that's the big catch that I saw when I got home. So they're all are interrelated and all affect each other, but substance abuse obviously will take a huge toll on your health as well.
And this is where I think when we look at even the coping mechanisms that we may have, socially we may see it as acceptable to Friday night or after whatever it is, a long day, to have a bit of libation, and that's okay. Even to many people, but is it the best way? Is it healthy? Is it going to have a negative health consequence on your liver, or on your finances, on your relations with family?
It's difficult because the culture here really supports alcohol use in particular, and obviously marijuana is very frequently used as well. So there's a lot of options, and they do have an effect, but it depends on the person how much they're able to handle and how it affects them.
I mean, we will talk about substance abuse next, but even in this vein, I take my hat off to Al-Anon as well as programs like AA, because they're very supportive of not just the recovering addict, but the family, in the case of Al-Anon, who has to be impacted by that in and of themselves. So I can see why your field of choice, like my daughter's, is one that you're drawn to. Maybe it'll not be as easy as to where you may decide to specialize, as it were. But Dr. Borden would be a great resource.
She really is.
Oh, man, she is. I recognize the time. Maybe Jason, with you, some initial thoughts, and then Shane?
Sure, yeah. I just wanted to kind of add on to this idea of our mental health versus mental illness and the effects on our behavior and stuff. I'm seeing so many more adults in this community, Caribbean born, raised, either from Cayman or other islands around, that are starting to reach out and say, as Terry would say, I want something to change, and they've got their
change.
Yeah, they've got their patterns, and that may involve, a lot of it usually involves avoiding things. So, and that becomes a problem. So anxiety, the solution for a lot of anxiety is not to avoid it, because it gets worse. And, depression makes you want to avoid everything in life, and that just tends to make it worse. So even the idea of going out on a Friday night and getting drunk, I've had a number of men in particular come forward and say, I want to change this. This is my pattern, and I don't like where it's going. It's taken me further away from what's important to me, like my family and my kids and stuff like that. So, but they're kind of stuck in these interactional patterns and avoiding conflict, avoiding situations, and they're not really sure how to cope with it all. So it may not be necessarily, even anxiety, depression, but just being able to communicate and feel okay and whatnot. So they've got their coping mechanisms, but they're starting to realize that it's not going to work long term, and they want to do something else. So more and more I'm starting to see people, and I'm so proud of especially the adults, because kids are often forced into it by their parents, but adults will voluntarily step forward and say, I want to see something change, and I'm willing to come out and do this. So yeah, that's
important.
I was just going to say, I think after COVID, it's kind of given everybody a different perspective, taking a step back. It really is what I'm doing, because everybody's from home, right? We're all working from home, and I just got a sense that everybody had more time to think, geez, what, is this the right thing, what I'm doing? Like, it could be good, it could be bad, and just maybe, definitely myself, we all did, like, realise how short life is, when you saw the cases throughout the world and how people are losing loved ones and not even getting to see them. Like, it was horrific up in New York and stuff, and other places, Italy. So that's just one thing, as in, like, people kind of taking a step back in life, because we're all going 90 here, right? I've sensed it, especially in Cayman, for the last number of years. I've been here since 2006, but definitely, and I'm in that race as well. I'm rushing. We're all rushing. Just I think we just need to slow it down, take a step back, and analyze your life, and just thinking, is this the right thing? Because sometimes we're in automatic mode, like robots, right, going from A to B, and we don't get a time to adjust and just digest things. So that's just one thing.
In all things, give thanks. Huh? In all things, give thanks. Yeah.
And
man.
The APF information again, if that's okay.
Yeah,
sure.
Thank you.
So our website is www.alexpattonfoundation.ky. We've also got our Facebook page, Alex Patton Foundation. We're very visible there. And we're also on Instagram. Just trying to think. We've got loads of kind of resources on our website, helpful kind of links for people as well. And actually, we recently launched a focus group for the LGBTQ plus community. So we'll be looking to taking a look at that, and we'll probably roll out a pathway, a clinical pathway for that community, which I think is really needed here. And I think just on therapy, before I leave it, is that it's important to get a click with that right therapist, right, and counsellor. So don't feel bad, because some people might give up. I went to so and so, and that's it. They just give up.
Therapy didn't work.
Yeah, it was something we didn't touch on. That don't be afraid to go back to your doctor and say, look, so and so, really nice person, but I just didn't click. Would you mind referring me to someone else? So it's about having the courage and kind of
being your own best advocate.
Yeah.
I like that one, because it's all about relations, right? Feeling confident in a person's competence.
Especially because I feel like Caymanians are taught to be respectful and not to advocate like that. It's a gross generalization, but speak up and ask questions. We want you to.
You need to.
We want you to, yeah.
Right. Well, in this segment, Dr. Bond, I appreciate you staying on for the next one, but as those who want resources, I know drborden.com is there, but share with us.
Yeah, so APF has a lot of great stuff. There are free counselling services available at the Counselling Centre. They're available by 949-8789. Give them a call and they'll schedule an intake. And they see everyone on island for free, which is great that Cayman has that. Any emergencies, the accident emergency room at HSA or 911. There's also the Crisis Centre hotline, which is available 24/7, 943-2422. drborden.com has all of our information on it as well. So thank you to everyone. And I will say as well that and just looking at mental health and therapy in Cayman, I think the pandemic really highlighted the need for the resources on island, which is why I'm really glad that Miss Jackie and the Loud Silent Voices group homes are now available, and the long-term mental health facilities coming up soon. There's been such expansions in the other levels of services that those are really filling some huge gaps that we had. And APF has the adolescent hub coming out soon too. So
yeah, we've actually got a mobile health unit we'll be launching as well. So
yes.
We've got the car for that. So that will be like a mobile health unit that will get out into each district. But here's the key thing: with a clinician on board. So not just like a nurse, but a proper clinician. So we're super excited about rolling that out. And then obviously, we're in conjunction with the crisis centre, we've teamed up where we'll be launching a text line. Which again will be manned by a clinician eventually. So yeah, lots of positive.
Yeah, man. This is where I think these discussions are helpful because it reminds the public that there are resources, but it reminds us as policymakers, as parents, that we need to take a principal role in this whole thing, and it's about health and well-being for all, and not something to be ignored as it has been in many places and even here for too long. Yeah. Thank you both, Sheen and Jason, for joining us in Terra earlier. Now we're going to pause and take a break. Dr. Borden has been gracious with our time. I don't know if she finds so many hours in a day, but and together with Zoe Conley-Bazdeo, hopefully Brent Hayes will join us and we'll have another discussion, sort of keeping it focused on our health and well-being. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
The 20th Annual Talent Exposition of the Arts is here.
Are you ready for some talent tonight?
Presented by the New Self-Help Community Foundation. Coming to the stage Sunday, July 25th at the Harkwell Theater. Don't miss. Awesome performances by Liana DaCosta, J.C. Patrick, Rico Rolando.
Yeah, she twerking off a band and I'm about to make a dance, yeah.
Radiance Dance Studio, Mariah Praise, Dream Chasers Cayman, James at Anglin and Son, SI, Center Point Dance Studio, and UCCI Dancers. Part of the proceeds from the Talent Exposition of the Arts go to support the John Gray High School Music Department. Prepaid tickets at Funky Tangs and Winners Circle Sports. $10 or $15 at the gate. The 2021 Talent Exposition of the Arts, Sunday, July 25th at the Harkwell Theater. Gates open at 5:30 p.m. Show starts at 6:30. Get your tickets today.
Inaja Productions, in association with Cash Wiz Cayman, presents Cash Wiz Cayman Kids Got Talent Show at the Line Center on Saturday, July 17. Start the summer right and come out. Support and cheer on our kids as they show off their God-given talent. Showtime 5 p.m. Tickets are available at Cash Wiz Cayman and at the gate. Admission only $15. Part proceeds go to Feed Our Future. So join us on July 17 and experience an evening of talents. Special guest performances by recording artist Rico Rolando.
I wish I still loved you.
Steel Pan solo act Ruby Pelita and CKGT 2018 winner magician Joshua Cowell. Cayman Kids Got Talent is sponsored by Cashways, CUC, Health City, Ministry of Financial Services and Commerce, People's Choice Groceries, LED Lighting Engineering and Design, KPMG, Seaport Marine, Butterfield Bank, the #1 shoe shop, K-Cool Ice Cream, CL Construction, Cellular World, Radio Cayman, Breeze FM and Inaja Productions.
I've got some beautiful clothes. I know just where they go. Puritan Cleaners.
Puritan Cleaners would like to remind customers the closing time for all stores is 5:30 p.m. Savannah Countryside, 10 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Elgin Avenue, 8 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Puritan Cleaners, 337 Eastern Avenue. Drive-through, rain or shine. 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Now 10% off prepaid on $20 orders and up. Household and wedding dresses remain at standard offer. 10% off on prepaid orders. Drop off and transfer for pickup from any of the 3 Puritan stores for your convenience. Call 949-7104. Puritan Cleaners. You feel good when you look good.
We are in the hurricane season, and knowing what to do after a hurricane can be as important as preparing for the storm. After the passage of a hurricane, seek medical attention if it is needed at hospitals and clinics for those persons who are injured. Do not touch power lines and cables that are down. They may be active. Report them to 911 or the utilities emergency hotlines. Broken tree limbs should be removed from around homes or buildings if possible. This hurricane information has been brought to you by Breeze FM and Radio Cayman.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks very much for joining us. And if she doesn't mind, I know we all have seen her incredible sort of service to our society. Dr. Alexandria Borden as again, sort of keeping the same hat but expanding the fold. Joining Mr. Brent Hydes now as we talk about the Hope for Today Foundation and the upcoming Walk for Recovery. And Ms. Zoe Conley-Basdale for continuing to sit. Yes, she's independent-minded, eloquent, but she understands the through her parents, that service call. So thanks for staying on. So another half hour or so of some discussion and then some open line after the break. But hope for today, Mr. Hydes.
Yes, Sterling, doing you is always a pleasure. I'm sitting across from you and particularly developing a relationship with Dr. Alexander Borden as we continue to really focus on helping individuals in this community that are struggling with substance abuse. Remind the public, Cayman is home to many people that are struggling with addiction. Mm-hmm. And together, as a group, we can make such a difference. I've seen lives pretty much change before my eyes down at Hope with the assistance of Dr. Borden and her interns as they visit. But most of all, as a community, we must recognize that we have an issue. I don't want to call it a crisis yet, but if we don't continue to focus on it, it probably will develop into something of that sort.
Yeah, well, I certainly want to say and share a thanks to Ms. Katina Anglin and the Christian Association of Civics and Political Education for using the spot to Hope for Today.
Thanks.
And this is where, many hands make light work, where you come together and you see, as Brent was sharing, that there are commonalities. Dr. One, you were talking about, they overlap on many things, and too often we don't appreciate how something impacts someone in a certain way, and down the road, if you were following sort of the lead, the trail, you'll see how it all sort of interconnects. Mm-hmm. I don't say this to offend anyone, but I think too often, even their PSCs, even their public speeches, we talk about drugs and alcohol. I remember my biology teacher showing that alcohol is a drug. Mm-hmm. Right? So for me, it is, one and the same, and I deliberately, hopefully not offensively, hey, it's not drugs and alcohol, it's, drugs. Just drugs,
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a prescribed drug, whether it's an accepted social drug like alcohol, or whether it's one that's being championed to become legalized or decriminalized, or it's an opioid crisis. We need to recognize that it is a substance abuse issue. Accessible as alcohol is, it's a drug. Mm. Right, Brent?
It sure is.
All right.
I'm going to leave that one to Dr. Borden.
But then with that, when we think, and of course, Ms. Zoya, any point that you want to ask even a question or just weigh in, please do so. Because we're going to take, less than half an hour and maybe appreciate, Brent, the Walk for Recovery, for instance.
Yes, but let me just touch on the alcohol piece. During the pandemic, the early stages of the pandemic, I could hardly get any sleep.
Yeah.
Because of people going through the stress, the anxiety. But most of all, you found people that was married and that was continued, and they were in long-term relationships, and they never had any opportunity of really spending any long time with one another. And when they got locked down, they had challenges.
Mm-hmm.
They had challenges, and that challenge is left to people turning to alcohol, lots of drinking, which create a big mess in the household because they didn't know how to manage themselves.
You didn't see my notes, right? But in thinking about today's discussion, I wrote down, working from home / more abuse, more alcohol use and abuse.
Yes.
And I'm glad that you referenced that because it's probably going to be the norm for, a number of people in a number of places where this is going to be their lives for a long time, whether at home or whether shared between the home office and the other office space. And two things jumped at me. One, Brent's reference immediately. You're in space with someone, a lot more tension. How is that sort of reflecting when the Commissioner of Police was asked by the media during those briefings back then, incidents of domestic violence? Oh no, they're the same. It was shocking that was the response,
Right, but that was, I think what has come out is that was actually misrepresentation. There was no reported abuse because it's normally people outside of the house that report it, especially child abuse. It's the teachers, it's the social workers, it's the people that interact with the kids outside of the home that report it, which is why a lot of that, I would say that it didn't happen, it wasn't reported. So I think that was, it's true, the statistics went down, but that's not generally the case that we see. Exactly. Yeah, and I think with the alcohol, alcohol being separate from drugs, there's more of a stigma amongst the substance abuse community against drugs because they're illegal. But and so people who are just an alcoholic see themselves as different from an addict, but really the processes are very similar, right? And we can see it. It's not even always with a drug or a substance. Sometimes it's even with other behaviors. We now diagnose gambling addiction, right? We see it with even shopping, sex, food. Anything can really be used and abused, anything that affects the way that we feel. So that's a big part of it. But I was curious why through all of lockdown, alcohol was, liquor stores were allowed to continue. And that's the catch, is just because something is legal doesn't mean it's safe, right? Alcohol withdrawals can kill you. And so when I read up, because I noticed we're following the U.S. and the trends, and I was like, and I live right across the store from a liquor store that was the only thing open during lockdown, and the line was down the street. It was insane, and so I was curious as to what goes on. But the hospitals in the U.S. were so overwhelmed with COVID patients, they didn't want everyone going to alcohol withdrawals at the same time.
So having open
because it's a medical emergency, alcohol withdrawal. Someone is chronically an alcohol user. If they stop cold turkey, they go into withdrawals. They end up with seizures and they can die.
Correct.
Yeah, and see, this is where I think understanding certain things. I know we do have a call online as we go back to our phones. Mr. Hayes, I would invite you to put on a headset. I don't want you to mess up your hair too much. Nice to groom. Yeah.
Like that. There's that more pleasant haircut.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you today?
I am very thankful, sir. How about yourself?
Well, I'm not as good as you, but I'm good.
Well, thank God, man. And I'm striving every day to be better.
It's hard to be as good as you.
I'm blessed for sure.
Yeah, we're all blessed.
Amen, brother. Amen.
We don't realize it though.
True. We don't give thanks enough.
What I wanted to talk about today is that the other day I went up to the office people, and they used to have a little cubicle there where they had the ATM machine for Cayman National Bank. And I looked on this building, and there's a thing there now called Vape Shop. Apparently they're selling these vape things that, and I don't know how they got a license, because everybody's talking about how ridiculous stuff can be, and the dangers of inhaling that stuff, and it gets in people's lungs. All you got to do research on it, and it's not coming from some fly-by-night company or somebody doing it. This is the big pharmaceutical, but big medical establishments and stuff like that. They talk about it, and how we let somebody. It's not useful for anything. Cigarettes, I guess, they kind of got grandfathered in over the years because we knew about them as much as we know today. You probably wouldn't give them a license, but they give them a license. But then if somebody goes and gets a stick of ganja, he goes to jail. But they license this big thing, and all you got to do is read what is in that stuff and how that's destroying the lives of young people. And when the people that are taking it are not people our age, but it's the young people that are coming up. And if it's legal, there's going to be a lot of young people that are going to be convinced to go down there on a night out at Cayman Bay or something, and let's go by the vape shop and pick up a couple of vapes or something. And nobody tells them that place doesn't, I'm sure that place doesn't have an article or a poster in there said, if you take this is what the possibilities are that could happen. You see, what I'm really disgusted about is that these people, companies like that can get licensed. And it gives people, oh my God. I am so saddened about this island and what is happening to us. I mean, it's not just me, because others we talk about it, and we talk about what's going on here. And if we don't stop and think, use your heads. I went to court this morning for a ticket to park and ticket here at the Strand when Michael's was open. They were doing all the parking lot on this side, on the side where the Canton restaurant is. And there was a definite shortage of parking space in that place when that place opened. I went by there, and the only place that I could see was the park was on the angle parking right behind that, close to the entrance, going from the west side where you go get the ATM there. Some police officer came in there and gave me a ticket. I went to court this morning. I said, Doc, I told the judge, I said, I'm going to fight this because I don't think he should have given me a ticket. In fact, he didn't go inside and ask the security people in there that I told I was just coming in to change something, and then I would go back out. No, they didn't do that. They get a kick out of doing it. And this is the other thing that bothers me, is the fact that we get police officers sometimes, we don't always know where they come from and what they've done. Because recently, a couple of years back, there was a guy that had committed, I think it was 1 or 2 murders, came down here as a police officer, and he had a clean state of health from Jamaica. And then they found he had killed these people. He had to get, this is what's destroying Cayman. We must do something. Gentlemen, I could talk on, but I only wanted to mention that. I hate to see young people getting hooked on other things. And this vape thing is going to destroy a lot of young people.
All right.
Nice thing to do it.
Yeah, man. Thanks very much. You too.
Yeah, thanks for calling.
We thought, and we look at the addictions. I think Dr. Ball made an interesting point. We'll say someone's an alcoholic, but someone's a drug addict, as if it's different.
2 different things.
Maybe if it's not going to be, for emphasis, I mean, one of the same sort of the behaviors and the, but you would know. I mean, help us understand better.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the processes are very similar, right? So there's a substance that they're relying on to help them to feel better, and it's relied on to the point that it's causing difficulties in their lives, right? And I was thinking it's interesting because we don't see similar patterns with nicotine, and because I was thinking about this idea of because it's legal doesn't necessarily mean it's safe, which is the issue we run with the vapes, is that because it's legal, people think it's safe, and that's not the same thing. But with alcohol and drug addiction and even some of the behavioral addictions, it's a very similar pattern. You feel bad, you feel stressed, you get the substance, you do the behavior, you feel better, then the stress comes back and it builds this pattern where you're relying on something outside of you to be able to feel better. And so it becomes an addiction and a problem once it begins to interfere with other aspects of your life. You're not able to, you start missing class, you're late for work, you're not able to pick up or spend time with your kids, you're not able to meet your daily responsibilities. So whatever it is, whether it's a behavior or a substance, whether alcohol or drugs, that's when it becomes a problem.
Right. So in a sort of drug use, right?
Yeah, and then you remember why does, thinking back of my younger days of even smoking marijuana, why did I get wrapped up in it in the first place? Because I saw my friends do it and I thought it was cool. And I think it's kind of the same thing with this vapor stuff. They see their friends doing it, it looks good. They can walk into places and just puff away without all the scent and all the stuff that goes along with smoking a cigarette. And I think a lot of the young people are just kind of seeing it as the cool thing to do, not looking deeply into it and seeing the dangers of smoking it or having one.
If I might then, because sometimes I think we are not, especially in this society, it may be the same other places, but since this is where we live and work, where our bread is buttered and we lay our heads, maybe we focus. If I might, as well, only if you wish, look at the National Drug Council's sort of statistics with, they do every 2 years a survey looking at drug use amongst adolescents and I think it's even much younger than our school-age children.
Yeah.
I wonder what the perception is, to Brent's point, that this, whether smoking or drinking on the age or being accepted. So your initial thoughts and how prolific you think drug use is, just generally speaking?
I completely agree with the statement that it's socially acceptable, perhaps, way too much so. It is definitely a culture that if you're not doing it, why aren't you doing it? That's weird, it's not acceptable, and it, really stigmatized in the sense that you should be doing it because that's what everyone does, and if you don't do it, there's social repercussions. So there's that pressure to give in, because if you don't partake in those activities, everyone says this is okay, it's fine, and you might not know better, or you might not know where to find those resources to actually find out for yourself how this is affecting your body. So you go along with it, and as with a lot of other addictive substances, it just spirals. So if you're hooked from that young age because of a lot of social pressure and the acceptability, it could, have really serious health consequences for you. As Dr. Bodden mentioned, it affects everyone differently. Alcohol, vapes, other drugs, they affect everyone differently. But for someone could, drink socially, constantly, all the time, and be fine. But another unsuspecting young person could do so, and it could ruin their lives. So I think it's so important to have conversations with your friends and everyone, and it's building up the courage to say, that's okay, I'll pass, and reinforcing the mindset that it's okay to pass, because the glorification needs to stop.
Right. I wonder to what extent, too, I have a view, and probably some research would support it, that just like how parents who are involved in the lives of the children seem to do better. Just like we see young people who are more engaged in activities making, better decisions, or even delaying certain behaviors. I wonder to what extent educated necessarily, not academic, but and more knowledge about certain things would lead to better informed decisions. So for young people, like Ms. Zoe was sharing, know the dangers, know the addictive behaviors, know the potential negative consequences. I wonder how that would play out in our society relative to, their decision to drink on the age or to drink excessively at any point, whatever age.
Honestly, if I may,
Yes,
I think
please.
it's quite powerful. Like, I distinctly remember sitting in maybe year 8 class at Cayman Prep with Ms. Myers, and she was doing a presentation on, drugs and alcohol use, and it stuck with me. I remember thinking, that can change my brain. Like, are you kidding me? I don't want that. Like, it was scary for me. And I think, for some people it doesn't work, but for every young person that hears those consequences and they think how I did and say, I don't want that happening, I understand that. That's another person potentially saved, Education is so powerful because you never know who it's going to really get through to.
So then, and I agree with you, because likewise, similarly. So given that timely information, given it in its accurate raw form, don't sugarcoat it. That's what you feel that you needed, and would you believe those young people would actually want and benefit from receiving?
Completely, because young people want the truth. If they feel like you're babying them, especially at that crucial age, if they feel like you're babying them, you're sugarcoating things, then, oh no, I'm going to find out for myself. I don't decide that. But if you tell them how things are, this is the reality, this is what you're going into, especially with something as impactful as alcohol and other drugs, it'll make the difference because they feel like you trust them with that information. You're coming of age, you can make these you're going to be faced with these decisions. I trust you with this information so that when you're faced with it, you're prepared.
Yeah. Right. I think that is help. Sorry, Dr. Warren.
Yeah. Well, and then even if they do decide to try it and anything does come up, hopefully they'd be willing to come back and talk to the parents about it as well. Yeah,
I mean, as they shared, I think, into our presentation as part of the West Bay Progressive Youth Club that we had. And these are people who just entering their teens. We organized, got a police officer or 2 other people to come and make a presentation, and it did inform. I think it did cause some of us to strongly consider our choices, and may have done, as Ms. Zoe shared, make the difference. But Brent,
yes, just to reflect back on, I guess 10, maybe 10 and a half years ago, I think maybe I can draw your memory of when Tara Delina and I came on Radio Cayman, was talking about substance abuse and when we had first opened the Hope for Today Foundation, it was quite obvious to me after the show, being approached by so many people, that I had came out and actually started to talk about what drugs did to me, how low it had made me get, and people was quite shocked, I would say, because the stigma was so buried that nobody wanted to talk about it. And me coming on Radio Cayman at that particular time and actually opening up and talking about where drugs had taken me, where alcohol has taken me, even though it was a part of my story. And I thought, like the young lady was saying, it needed to be heard, and it needed to be heard raw, straight from the core.
And this is why we appreciate the partnership. Hope for Today comes on often. Now the Hope for, today's Walk for Recovery end of September will come on between now and then. But as we close the discussion, getting out to the news, any closing thoughts you want to share with us?
I just want to invite people to come out to our 9th annual Walk Run for Recovery. It's taking place on September the 26th. I want to thank Encore Cayman for coming on board. They're one of the sponsors. But come out and join us. Come out and join the hundreds of people that's going to come out to this event. Be supportive to those in the community that are struggling with substance abuse. The Walk for Recovery is basically the finale of Recovery Month. September is the month of recovery. So that's basically the end of the month of recovery. So we do the finale, which is a walk run. And it's an awesome event. We get to see people that are in recovery, that has been clean and sober for many years. We get people that have just started the journey. But most of all, we must be the voice and be a support for those in this community. If not, we're...
I think we recognize, too, that it is a daily walk.
Yes, it is.
Whether it's 25, 30 years in, or whether you're, just counting the days, it's a daily walk.
It's one day at a time.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm going to have you on, in the future as well. Ms. Zoe, thank you very much for being you. Thank you for sharing time. And Dr. Borden, endless thanks as well.
Could I just make one correction to something I had said earlier? I said that cigarettes didn't follow the same pattern. I meant for intoxication. Not addiction. I apologize. I just wanted to clarify that.
Well, I think that was obvious, but yes, thanks for clarifying that.
Just in case. And I want to thank Mr. Byrne as well. I was talking the other show about how all the new services that we have, and Hope for Today Foundation with their work as a halfway house and a transition out of either prison, out of recovery, is a big resource for a lot of people on islands. So I just want to say thank you as well.
This is it, man. So together, we make it. Brent will talk to you again some more very soon, I'm sure. All the best, Ms. Zoe, in your continued studies, and they're going to make a meaningful, lasting impact in our community, in fact, on the globe. So thanks very much. And of course to you, Dr. Borden. All right, your listeners, after the break, let's have some open line. It's a Monday. Hey, pump up the energy. Give me some of your insight. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
You are listening to Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice. Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
With your latest headlines, I'm Shanda Gallego from Radio Cayman's newsroom. Consumer-based family mental health support group Silent Loud Voices celebrates the grand opening of its long-awaited community group home for mental health in West Bay on Saturday. It's the first of its kind in Cayman. Among the attendees, His Excellency Governor Martin Roper, who says the 8-bed facility will, quote, provide persons with a mental illness a supportive environment to learn skills geared towards independent living. Governor Roper says he welcomes the government's commitment to do more to reduce the stigma around mental health and ensure it is a top priority. Turning to international news now, the head of the World Health Organization called on drug makers to prioritize supplying their COVID-19 vaccines to poor countries instead of lobbying rich countries to use even more doses, just as some pharmaceuticals are seeking authorization for a third dose to be used as a booster. At a press briefing on Monday, WHO chief said the massive disparity in vaccines between rich and poor countries means that, quote, we are making conscious choices right now not to protect those in need. He said the priority now must be to vaccinate people who have received no doses. Thousands of Cubans have joined the biggest protests for decades against the island's communist government. They marched in cities including the capital, Havana, shouting freedom and down with the dictatorship. Cubans have been angered by the collapse of the economy, food shortages, high prices, and the government's handling of the pandemic. The protests are significant, with government critics risking jail for dissent in the island. And a sealed copy of video game Super Mario 64 has sold at auction for more than $1.5 million, shattering records. The 1996 cartridge was a launch title for the Nintendo 64 console and was one of the most influential early 3D platformers. The auction house said there were fewer than 5 copies in such good condition. The sale dwarfed another record breaker, an original Legend of Zelda cartridge, set just 2 days before. Those are your latest headlines here on Radio Cayman. I'm Shanda Gallego.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
When you're tight on time and budget, but big on flavor, Subway's Meal of the Day hits the spot. Enjoy daily meals on classic sandwiches like tuna, Black Forest ham, meatball marinara, and more. Starting at $6.25 for 6-inch meals and $8.75 for footlongs. You can get Subway's Meal of the Day. Enjoy a different sandwich on a different day for the same price. Mix it up with cookies or chips or waffle fries for the same price. Subway. Eat fresh.
Explore your history. Explore your land. Explore your sister islands. The ultimate staycation experience. Your culture, your freedom. The land that time forgot isn't gone. It's your sister islands.
Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
Make your house into a home. Welcome to Brand Source Home Gallery, your source for premium products and a premium experience. We'll design and install your dream kitchen with crafted cabinets, complemented with elegant appliances. We'll fill it with quality houseware and cookware. Custom-designed closet and storage solutions organize and beautify any area. And with the finest bedding, you'll get a perfect night's sleep knowing Brand Source Home Gallery has everything you need to make your house a home.
Did you know about UCCI's Back to Uni giveaway? Up to $2,000 in prizes are being given away.
Serious? How can I win?
Easy. Just register early for fall classes and you'll be entered to win in one of UCCI's weekly giveaways. Maybe you'll get lucky and win one of the top 3 prizes, your choice of an iPad or a laptop computer.
Cool. I'm going online to register now.
Students can register online, make an in-person appointment, or drop in at UCCI. Visit ucci.edu.ky for more information on UCCI's Back to Uni giveaway.
Your Radio Cayman 6 p.m. news, Monday through Friday, is brought to you by Logic. Your life connected.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us. And for the remainder of the program, we want to invite you to be a part of a discussion. It's going to be open line. Mr. Carl sits across the table today, giving us an opportunity to hear another voice. So it's 949-8037, toll free with the compliments of flow if you so choose, 949-8037, or you can dial us toll free at 1-800-534-8255, or WhatsApp 925-3261. Numbers you'll use when you call in here or you call in, start in the morning for the record, be a part of the discussion then. It's a Monday, and unfortunately, seems like in our society, we can celebrate some, wonderful accomplishments and milestones. And we also have, things that unfold that are tragic. And when we reflect upon them, we ask ourselves, where is Cayman going? We would say things like we never thought we would see this day. Well, as our hearts and prayers are with families who are suffering the loss of loved ones, as we look at, communities sort of responding to incidents as we've seen in recent times. Is there something we can and should be doing differently? Is it that the writing has been on the wall for so long and been ignored? Is it that we are unsure what is happening and therefore unprepared to respond? Or do we just lack the courage? Or is it that some things are being driven by other hands and we are not even cognizant there's a game afoot? Hey, 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255, or you can WhatsApp 925-3261. As our earlier discussions sort of would indicate, when we look at our health and well-being, we appreciate that there are many sort of illnesses and things that plague individuals and sometimes communities. But if we can look at the positiveness, earlier, perhaps right before the news break, we heard a commercial, from One Course came on, one of our main advertisers, and we certainly appreciate, those businesses that want to reach the largest audience using Radio Cayman to get their message out. But, this advertising to me resonates in that it provides helpful, timely, constructive information. And, as Dr. Barton was presenting, talked about the brain, responding to positive messages and the importance, I think, for us to have that mindset, not to be oblivious of the things that transpire that may not necessarily sit well with us, as it were. But if we can change, our mindset and think more positively, think more in a sense of being helpful, being constructive, looking at things, as they would say, as the glass is half full, not necessarily half empty. But then again, how easy is that to do when you're concerned about your potential job loss, or you're seeing that things unfold in a certain way, and you have to question, well, why do bad things happen to good people? Why are we facing this particular predicament? Why are these challenges constantly ever present? Well, they say, adversity builds character. They say the test of the mettle of the man is to, put him in the mix of things and see how he materializes. Well, where are we and what are we doing to make it better? Well, 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255, or WhatsApp 925-3261. I think there are many who are like, others who are very optimistic and positive, not just giving the leadership of the Honorable Premier, Mr. Panton, but, the expectations that with a new government, comes new opportunities for not just change and progress and prosperity, but for things that may not necessarily have been addressed or addressed, but not to the extent that you thought, to be acknowledged, to be addressed, and to be championed with a view that we're improving our society's sort of expectations in those veins. Sometimes are unfounded, but most times, working hand in hand, they can be realized. Let's go to the phones, though. Good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. Billy's number here. How are you?
Hey, it's good to hear from you. It's been a while, man. I trust that you are well.
Well, it's been a while. Sometimes, you have to do a few other things and so forth. And good afternoon, of course, to your esteemed listeners. Dwayne, I've been concerned about one thing. I've been concerned about the exercise of the prosecutorial discretion. Mm-hmm. You know that the DPP under the law has got the power under the Constitution to commence a prosecution, stop it, or continue it, and so forth. And that is a very important power for them to be independent. But then it is always understood that there is a discretion sometimes in certain borderline cases whether or not they should prosecute. And I'm a little concerned about how that is being done. There was a write-up, I think it was on CNS, by somebody who went into some detail about how this is done in the UK. There is a manual which guides the DPP, and there's also a body which double-checks to be able to see how that discretion is being exercised. And when I looked at that, in the last few weeks, I looked at the video, not to bring it up again, the issue of Mr. Bush and the conviction, when I looked at the video, I think personally that if I was a prosecutor, I was going to exercise my discretion not to prosecute. Because when you looked at that, yes, there was technically an assault, but it was both ways, maybe more from one side than the other side, but it was both ways. And normally what a prosecutor would do in such a case is to say, look, I don't think that this is something we can prosecute, but if you want to bring a civil action, we will make the police officers and the videos available to you, and then you can prosecute.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was also a very good lesson for us in public, because I think once most of us saw the video, a substantial number of people, I think, did change their opinion a little bit, and I'm one of them.
Mm-hmm.
But let me comment on a very, very serious one, which is taking place right now. Now, this is the case of this lady from the DPP's office who is being prosecuted for breach of trust. Now, I can't comment on the court case because it's sub judice, but in the court they have given a number of facts. When they introduced the case, when the prosecutor introduced the case, there are some facts which they have given. And to me, I think they have put a bearing on how the prosecutorial discretion was exercised.
Mm-hmm.
One, I am wondering, Dwayne, why the prosecutor who is mentioned in the summary which was given in court, why that prosecutor is not being charged with neglect of duty under Section 119 of the Penal Code. Because, you see, according to the facts read out in court, this lady gave the file to the prosecutor and said, hey, look, I'm asking that my son, who has been found with, or allegedly found with ganja, should be given a caution instead of being charged.
Mm-hmm.
Then the prosecutor sent a file to the police asking for more information. At that point, it seems to me, the prosecutor should have ensured that the lady in question, the one who is being charged, does not handle the file again. And yet, when you look at the facts, they say that when the file came back from the police, it wound up in the hands of the lady again. How could that happen? What should have happened is that prosecutor should have said, well, this lady came to see me about this, Mr. DPP. I don't think that she should handle this file again. And then the opportunity for her to do what she is alleged to have done would never have arisen. So in my view, they should look into that as well, or at least explain why that has not been done. The second point is the matter, they said that she hid the file before, she hid the file, and they found out that there was actually a second defendant, somebody who was going to be charged together with the son. And that second defendant was recommended for prosecution. And this was after the file came back from the police. So it appears to me that this friend was not recommended for prosecution. And it seems to me that maybe that person then went to anti-corruption and said, oh, no. Why am I the only one being charged? And that's how anti-corruption got involved, because otherwise anti-corruption normally would not be involved. Last point. There is need for consistency in some of these bodies like Anti-Corruption Commission. See? Anti-Corruption Commission sometimes charge, sometimes they don't charge. Let me give you an example. This is my own example. This same commission, I filed a complaint with them, and I said, you know what? The Civil Registry of the Grand Court refused to file my application for a default judgment against this Judge Justice Kawali. And you know what the commission told me? They told me in writing. They said that we do not believe that anybody has committed any offense here. And yet, 6 months after my incident, they admitted actually that they had no right to refuse my form. So they were obstructing justice, basically. And yet the same commission now, which is charging this lady for the same similar thing that happened to me, they are saying that she committed an offense, but the staff of the Civil Registry did not commit an offense. So I think we need to continue asking why certain people are prosecuted and others are not being prosecuted. The last point, Dwayne, I know you've given me a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
The last one, you remember there was a case which came out in some other news media of a gentleman who, I shouldn't call him a gentleman in light of what I'm about to say. He was caught on the video stealing a stapler. Okay? It came out on video. I don't know if that person has been prosecuted. Okay, so if we don't prosecute people like that, and then we prosecute people like this lady who has worked in that place now for a long time. She's worked, I believe, in the DPP about 8 years, but I think she's been in the portfolio for even longer than that. We are prosecuting her now, and her life will be ruined. Her child's life will be ruined. And yet you have even a police officer way back. You remember a police officer who allegedly assaulted another police officer? They did nothing to him. They sent him to the BRAC. Meanwhile, the police officer decided to file a civil suit, and he succeeded in court to show that he had been assaulted. So why wasn't the person who assaulted him prosecuted? But the point I'm trying to make is the discrimination against Caymanians and the fact that there are certain groups which are considered to be above the law, and we need to deal with that if we are going to have some social coherence in Cayman. I just thought that these issues need to be aired, and they need to be, the prosecuting authorities need to answer why they haven't prosecuted this particular prosecutor who is named in the prosecution of this lady from the portfolio of legal affairs.
Mm-hmm.
I just thanks for the time. I continue listening and see what else comes up. Thanks very much, Glenn.
All right, thank you too. Thank you. And with that, we'll
Bye-bye.
have a wonderful afternoon and the rest of the week. We're going to pause shortly to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll join the other callers. Stay tuned.
Busy, busy, busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
Things just got a bit hotter on Island. Come in today and order the new spicy Korean subs at Subway. They're sweet, spicy, and especially satisfying. Stop in and try the pulled pork with spicy Korean sauce, or the chicken with spicy Korean sauce. And you can message WhatsApp at 929-4658. Order online or use Let's Eat or the Bento app. The spicy Korean subs at Subway in 2 flavors, extra saucy and extra spicy. Subway, eat fresh.
The HSA Specialist Clinic has relocated to a new, modern, state-of-the-art facility at Smith Road Center to offer you a better patient experience. Receive care from top specialists in chiropractic, complementary and alternative medicine, neurology, ENT, urology, pain management, and more. Our orthopedic and telemedicine clinics remain at the Cayman Islands Hospital campus. Please remember to bring your own face mask when visiting any HSA location. Visit our website, hsa.ky, to learn more. At the HSA, you matter to us.
The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you. We are a non-for-profit member-centric plan with a democratically elected volunteer board of trustees representing all sectors of the Cayman Islands economy. Chamber Pension has an all-in expense ratio of 0.72% over 16,000 members, $430 million in assets under management. We were the first multi-employer pension plan approved by the regulator in the late 1990s. And today, we are still strong, secure, and are here for employees and employers alike. If you would like to join or request further information, visit chamberpension.ky. And for information as it happens, follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Email admin@pensions.ky or call 745-7630. The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you.
Why is alcohol bad for me?
Look, you're too young for that, eh?
Don't try to scare your child about drinking or tell them you can't handle it. Instead, tell your child that alcohol can be bad for their growing brain. Tell them it interferes with their judgment and can make them sick. Underage drinking has severe consequences, including injury or death from accidents, academic problems, and even other drug use. Young people who drink are also more likely to have health issues, such as depression and anxiety disorders. Once children hear the facts and your opinions about them, it is easier for you to make rules and reinforce them. This message is brought to you by Radio Cayman and the National Drug Council.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for sharing your thoughts with us as we go straight to the phones. Good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon, Dwayne.
Hey, good afternoon, man. Someone was just saying the other day that we hadn't heard from you from a while. So, how are you, man?
I'm fine. Just busy working.
I can imagine, man.
When Saturday, I was in the public bus coming from town, going up to North Side. There is one man, Jamaican, crossing one other Caymanian man, bad word. And then when I tell this Jamaican man that, you shouldn't be crossing bad word in the public bus, and there is children. There was children, woman in the bus, and he crossing not just the regular Jamaican bad word. It's a very, very rude bad words. We couldn't say those stuff in front of children. The problem is now I was there, and you know me, I will not sit down there silent because there is children there. If there is adult, I will not say nothing. But because there is children in the bus, and the bus driver named James, he driving, something wrong with him. I think he is mentally ill or something, because he always talking to himself in the road. So anyway, this bus driver, because I speak with the Jamaican man, telling him not to cross bad word in the public bus, he said, I don't have business with him. So I tell him, all right, if I don't have business, you talk to him. All of a sudden, everybody from the bus is starting talking to me like I am the one guilty, because all of them Jamaicans, and they gang up in me. So I pick up the phone and I call 911, call the police. The police come. Unfortunately, my bad luck, the police officer from Bodentown Police Station is a Jamaican too. So he side up with those people crossing bad word in front of children. So he forget about all of that, and now telling me, that there is nothing to prosecute, to arrest them for. I tell him how. Crossing bad word in front of women and in front of children and saying bad words is not something. So this police officer from Bodentown Police Station with James, the driver from Northside bus, they are, and the group of Jamaicans in the bus gang up in me like I am the one guilty, and the police officer let them go. How in the world this could be happening in Cayman, my friend? How in the world is this country controlled by those people? Is this country will tolerate this behavior? The old man, Jamaican man in the back sitting, and they all gang up in him? How in the world this could happen? And this bus driver have no manners and no behavior, and the same thing, other bus drivers, Jamaicans, they have no manners and no behavior, and they continue doing the same thing, and the director of public transport never done nothing with them, the board never done nothing, and this government never changed the public transport board. And Kenneth Bryan promised to address this matter. You remember he was in your show, and I speak about that. He never done nothing. He liked to go in videos, show himself to the general public. I do this, I will do that, I will do this. And then in the end, nothing being done. So my friends, those Jamaicans, bus drivers, I'm not speaking about everybody. I'm speaking about specific names. James, Vestroy, and other one. Those people have no manners and no behavior. They don't want to behave good. They don't want to come here to make a living. And this guy named James saying he is married to Caymanian. Nobody can get him out of this country. All Caymanians can get him out of this country. So what does that mean?
Yeah, as I listen to you, I wonder to what extent, as you're sharing, when there are allegations of, improper behavior or less than stellar, customer service or lacking professionalism, what are we doing to address it? And when those of us that are in that same industry do nothing about it,
My friend,
yeah.
Dwayne,
Mm-hmm.
we can't bring more police from Jamaica. We can't continue like this. You don't see crime raising, people life in danger. We can't just give this public bus driving to one nationality. We can't do that. We can't do that. This is like monopoly to Jamaicans to drive public bus. We can't find 50 Caymanians drive bus, and you telling me Caymanians have no job?
You raise an interesting point when we extend it across the board.
Nonsense. This country is going over nonsense that this government promise. Kenneth Bryan promise. I will do this, I will do that. I don't see Kenneth Bryan doing anything about this public transport. Kenneth Bryan, move yourself, do something, achieve something, or you will be voted out next time. Simple as that.
Well, if you have, as you've had in the past, any grievances, continue to advocate and take it to if it's the Public Transport Board, or if it's the Ombudsman, maybe through active public commentary, we might be able to find, some resolution. But as the call emphasizes, it may go across the board if we expand it. Generally, how many allegations of, misconduct in different sectors, and unfortunately may lead to unfounded allegations against all and sundry simply because of the egregious actions of a small number. But like it or not, the caller is willing to share a perspective based on his personal view. Hey, thank you very much for that, and I hope that there is redress, because today is one and tomorrow is another. Let's take one more call. Good afternoon, welcome. Thanks for calling. Hello, good afternoon.
Hello.
How are you today?
You shut up, man. Sleep on that one.
Well.
Oh, so self-righteous. Anyhow. Listening to the diatribe, it went okay for me.
I thought you were saying the tirade, but anyway.
Yeah, but everything.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
It went okay for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's so self-righteous. Nobody don't like us. He don't like us. He cusses us. I don't know what the problem is. And we live, right? We talking, so we live in. So I don't know if anybody off the bus came on the bus died because somebody had cussed them. They cusses us every day, all day long. The government knows. Everybody knows. And they still cuss us. They themselves know how to cuss us, so I don't know what he's going on with. Like he like us so much.
Mm-hmm.
He's another one needs something to do. A whole lot light. You know what I mean? Anyhow, have a nice day.
Thank you for always making the commentary, and hopefully get a chance to chat with you again tomorrow.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, to all on Sunday, as best as you can, try to make this week very positive and very productive. It's a lot on our cards and our tables. We'll take one more call. Good afternoon, welcome. Thanks for calling.
Productive.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you. And if you can, just turn off the radio.
We'll take one more call. Good afternoon, welcome.
All right. It says not there. All right. That's it for today, Mr. Fox. Well, I invite you to have a very, very enjoyable rest of the afternoon. If it rains and you get wet, well, enjoy it. Don't just, splash into puddles. Enjoy the raindrops. Until tomorrow, be blessed.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. And Royal Fidelity Bank and Trust, money at work.